533 pages and 45 chapters are just numbers. Because after reading Dozakhnama, I'm looking at a bigger picture or a darker vision. Only the author could have informed his readers what was the need of writing such a thick book of mere conversation. I reckon this is not just a conversation that shapes the thickness of the book. There lies a significant portion of their sad and depressed lives and the intolerable pain that came from the British Raj. Hey everyone, the dark Knaik is here. The subconsciousness is the most powerful element for a writer to create phenomena. Through this thought process, the writer becomes God and creates a world and narrates a mind-blowing story. That is the beauty of reading and writing books. What if I tell you about two famous literary figures from South Asia, Mirza Ghalib from 19th century and Saadat Hasan Manto from the 20th century, speaking to each other from their respective graves? Gobsmacking, isn't it? This idea made me decide to read this Bengali novel, Dozakhnama. Dozakhnama, written by Indian author Rabisankar Bal, published in 2010, a few years before his death. This book was then translated in 2012 officially by Arunava Sinha. In 2012, he is a well-known translator who, as per his own website, is introduced as the translator of classic, modern and contemporary Bengali fiction and non-fiction into English and English fiction, non-fiction and poetry into Bengali. 82 of his translations have been published so far. Impressive. And thanks to him that the non-Bengali writers like me got the luxury to read this intellectual journey and read their hearts out through their pens. Imagine this dark underground world, but it is this distant and contorted world where there is no geography or national divisions. Just one silent world with no mortal keeps, but eternal sleeps. Two restless bodies rise, clean the dust and dirt, look hither and thither, shout out for help, and they hear each other from incalculable distance. At some point, they meet and exchange a conversation that longs for God knows how many minutes or years. 533 pages and 45 chapters are just numbers. Because after reading Dozakhnama, I'm looking at a bigger picture or a darker vision. Only the author could have informed his readers what was the need of writing such a thick book of mere conversation. I reckon this is not just a conversation that shapes the thickness of the book. There lies a significant portion of their sad and depressed lives and the intolerable pain that came from the British Raj that ruled India and concluded by witnessing their marching out and the birth of a new country within India that caused deadly riots, killing more than 200,000 people and displacing many millions further. And like every Indian of that time, both Mirza Sahab and Manto are a tragic part of damaged Hindustan. Mirza Sahab lived through the decline of Mughal Empire and the British Raj that ruled the Indian subcontinent for 90 years, whereas Manto witnessed and was deeply disturbed and traumatized by the partition violence and was torn between his Indian and Pakistani identities. Both Ghalib and Manto lamented about their beloved cities they left behind. Both Ghalib and Manto faced significant financial struggles throughout their lives and heavily depended on patronage, family and friends. Both Ghalib and Manto struggled with alcoholism that also reflected in their writing and also became a huge cause for losing their money. Both Ghalib and Manto critiqued societal norms, politics and religious hypocrisy through their work. Both Ghalib and Manto frequently visited the red light districts and wrote about the lives and struggles of courtesans and prostitutes. So I say Rabisankar Bal chose the most cognate and homogeneous pairing for an interesting conversation. These similitudes make me assume whether Ghalib was old Manto or Manto was the new Ghalib. And speaking of prostitutes, I understand Manto received severe criticism, particularly when he moved to Pakistan. He was charged with obscenity and profanity 6 times before and after partition, but didn't give up sharing with his dark partition-themed short tragic stories. It's quite interesting that Manto wrote around 220 stories in his lifetime, out of which hardly 30 of those stories had sexual content. So it is very amusing that his critics ignored all of his work and chose to read only sex stories. This gives a striking image of a particular society. Perhaps they get sexual gratification by reading only those selected stories. Either it is in India or in Pakistan, why is reading about prostitutes considered obscene? Why do people think that Manto wrote pornographic novels but couldn't distinguish that those writings were in fact a bold exploration of a human condition? Manto's such stories were social commentary about human experience that were considered out of bounds in the Indian and Pakistani societies. And the author made Manto speak some thought-provoking lines in chapter 38, 437. Chapter 38, 437. Here. And I quote, "If telling stories about whores is obscene, then the existence of whores is obscene too. Why is this obscenity allowed to persist? If it is forbidden to write about prostitutes, the profession must be forbidden too. Put an end to prostitution, and no Manto will be born to write about prostitutes." Oh, by the way, speaking of obscenity, in chapter 36, Manto complains for one whole page, how is breast an obscene word? Although the whole story centers around Ghalib and Manto speaking with each other from their graves. But while I grew in their conversation, with the turning of the chapters, my imagination moved them from their graves and I start to visualize them near River Ganga, Chandni Chowk, Pakti House, Taj Mahal, Old Delhi, Old Lahore, and some red light districts. The epiphany of their conversation is time traveling, and they discuss their lives, poetries, women, fantasies, and philosophy. The Sad Souls cordially expresses about love, spirituality, and losing someone. The expressions and mode of conversations is extremely natural, as if they have known for years. Just for example, chapter 29, page 337. It is so full of life when Ghalib describes his excitement when he is reading his old ghazals and then patting himself on his back, on which Manto laughs. On other occasion, chapter 25, page 283, the readers will get to read about Mirza Sahib's fondness for mangoes, as well as that incident about a donkey refusing to eat the fruit after sniffing. Like Ghalib, Manto told several stories that were one of his famous works like License, that is almost entire chapter 38, and Thanda Gosht in chapter 40, page 464 to 469. He even shared an incident in chapter 40, how film star Ashok Kumar took safe route during the riots to drop Manto to his home. There is an entire chapter 24, where Manto recounts Ghalib how he got wed with Safiya. Mirza Ghalib was 13, Umrao Begum was 8 when they got married. Child marriages were common in India during the 19th century. They had 7 children, but none of them survived to adulthood, so they were naturally a depressed couple. But Dozakhnama made me read some loveliest conversations between them that gives us an idea that there was politeness of love and respect between them. As one can observe when you are reading chapter 3, when Ghalib approaches Umrao to understand what does he reek of. And later in chapter 15, he indirectly calls her a spirit. I have no clue about the authenticity if scores of quotes by Ghalib and Manto are accurate or fictional. The story obviously is fictional, but the readers of Dozakhnama will be immensely thoughtful while he or she reads their conversation. And there is one of the lines by Ghalib to Manto about whom he considers a real poet is. On chapter 5, page 45, Mirza Ghalib, or the author's pen, opines, and I quote, "I think you cannot call someone a poet even if he has written 1,000 ghazals. But if he can write even a single sher like a howl of pain, smeared with all the blood in his heart, then and only then can we call him a poet." It is a wonderful thought. Anyone can construct a stanza hundreds of times, but if there is no depth in the expressions, it is cold and meaningless. The true poet will break and rob your heart and will play with your emotions in her unusual method of expression. Speaking about Mirza Ghalib's art of writing poetries, this reminds me of something. Whenever the films and TV shows were based on Mirza Sahib's life, the filmmakers shot a particular sequence about Mirza Sahib being mocked and humiliated in one of the courts of the prominent writers and poets in Delhi. Chapter 15, page 156. Ghalib describes Manto a couple of incidents, how he was taken down over his unusual style of writing poetries. It's not surprising that Ghalib's legacy is still alive even after more than 150 years of his passing away, and those who mocked him have either been faded or forgotten in the history pages. Bankim Puraskar is the highest award given by the government of West Bengal for contribution to Bengali fiction. Rabisankar Bal was awarded with this honor for writing Dozakhnama. What value does this book hold for me? Dozakhnama has a historic significance that connects the dots by blending the autobiographies of two legendary Urdu writers with the tragic tale of the fate of Indians from the beginning until the departure of the British Raj. The book presses on the social values of togetherness that dismantled the wooden bridge and consequently made the observers like Ghalib and Manto witness the Babylon fire that recognized the theory of identities. Dozakhnama champions the idea of bringing two literary giants of the past to let the readers get the taste of what if in such a different universal setting. For how long did they talk in this book, by the way? Maybe the conversation that is written for over 500 pages is a conversation of mere one day. After all, the afterlife, heaven or hell, is infinite. So, in this mystical realm, most likely there can possibly be millions or billions of Dozakhnama novels, with Ghalib and Manto pressing on more literary, sentimental and philosophical discussions. It's just my observation that this is what Rabisankar Bal was convincing the readers, that we all have read just 0.1% of their conversation in their respective graves. Whether it is 0.1% or 99.9%, one thing is for sure, that Ghalib and Manto will continue to live on in public memory thanks to the power of their words. I will conclude this book review by quoting to you all arguably the best line of Dozakhnama. How could the hatred during the riot erased so many centuries of memories? I'm Sami Naik. Thank you for watching my video, really appreciate it. If you like my content and really want to watch this kind of shit more, then subscribe to my channel and don't forget to click on the bell icon and drop your messages and suggestions in the comment box down there. Take care and always look on the bright side of life.